Hey, folks, welcome to the 8th episode of the Bobby Bowen Show. It's a brand new show on Facebook, and I feel like I have hit the big time finally because I've got Elliott McCoy of Three Bridges on with me. Elliott, how are you doing, brother?
Oh, Bobby, I don't know about the big time, buddy, but I'm doing fantastic. What an honor it is to be part of your show. And I'm thrilled. I've seen several of the episodes, and you are doing an outstanding job. But I'm blessed that you invited me to be part of it. I feel like I'm joining a big time show.
I
Thank
don't,
you.
I don't know about big time, but I'm working toward, just getting some more information about the artist. It don't have to be gospel; it can be country, rock, just whatever. Because people like to feel like they know the people that they go to concerts and they pay tickets to go see and buy their CDs. They want to know more about those people, especially about their history. And that's kind of what this show is about. So we're going to go way back, Elliott, to tell everybody where you were born. If you want to say the date, you
I
don't
don't
have
mind.
to, but just
Oh, Lord, I don't mind.
kind of go from there and then talk about your influences, how you got started in music and what made you want to do it as a profession.
Yeah.
Start from there.
Well, I was born. I jokingly tell everybody I was born in the Holy Lands, and that's Burnwell, Kentucky.
Oh,
And
that
if you don't know where Burnwell, Kentucky is, that's in eastern Kentucky in the Appalachian Mountains, and I am a direct descendant of the Hatfield McCoy feud. So
really
I grew up on the farm where the feud took place. And I was born, I'm very careful about sharing this because the Hatfields were all across the river in West Virginia.
okay.
There's a river that divides West Virginia from Kentucky. Now, I lived right on that river in Kentucky, but for 2 days, I was born in Williamson, West Virginia.
Ooh.
But I got out there as fast as I could. But I was born June the 11th, 1945.
Ooh, Elliott, I never
So
would have
I'm a
guessed you were that
war
old.
baby.
So that Hatfield and McCoy thing, y'all, they when you were a kid, they still didn't have the guns out, did they? It wasn't nothing like that, was it?
No, my grandpa, I was raised by my grandparents. My dad got killed in the coal mines, but my grandparents were godly people, and they would never talk about it. My grandpa McCoy, he was, I think, embarrassed, because it was a nasty
Yeah.
feud that should never have happened, but pride got in the way. But I grew up on the farm where the McCoys used to meet. And
Wow.
Probably when my grandpa passed away, 1984, he was 100 years old when he passed away.
Wow.
But at his funeral in in Burnwell, Kentucky, at the McCoy Cemetery, there was over 350 reporters that when he was buried. That little town probably population maybe 150, and we went up on the cemetery. You couldn't get up on the cemetery. NBC, Good Morning America, ABC, every network in the nation was there. I was interviewed by 2 reporters from Australia.
My goodness.
And I go, why would you come to Burnwell, Kentucky to a funeral? And the Australian guy, he said, with his accent, said, it's the most famous private feud in history. And I went, whoa, I've never thought about that.
Well, yeah.
But from that point forward, I've researched it and studied it and realized that, well, Kevin Costner did a movie about it. I mean, it's been many movies about it, but that's where I'm from.
So did you know any of the Hatfields? I mean, did you get acquainted with them?
As a kid, I knew a couple of them, and we never had any animosity or anything like that. It was just children,
Yeah.
But at 15, I was 15 when my grandparents moved from Kentucky to Columbus, Ohio. And in Columbus, I met several Hatfields directly descendants from the Feud and became friends with them.
So I guess the feud is over and done with by now. It's over.
I wouldn't go that far. Yeah, it is.
Okay, that's good. So Elliott, that's an awesome story right there. I bet most people didn't even know that about you.
From growing up in Kentucky, Bobby, I had 14 uncles on my mother's side and dad's side combined. 14 uncles. They all played banjos, fiddles, guitar. Every night we'd be on somebody's front porch listening to music.
Kind of like the Darlings on Andy Griffith's show.
Oh, my goodness. And all they sang, though, was bluegrass.
Yeah.
I can't stand bluegrass today because of that.
Uh-oh, don't tell Jeff and Sherry that. Or the Easter Brothers.
Hey, there's a picture of Sherry Easter. I love the Easter.
Oh,
now,
yeah.
I say that jokingly.
Yeah.
But as a kid, I really didn't like bluegrass music. I didn't like how they sang.
Yeah.
And as a teenager, I bought a transistor radio and I started listening to rock and roll. But back in my day, rock and roll was the Everly Brothers,
yeah,
Conway Twitty, of course, Elvis Presley, the Beatles. Of course. And that changed my taste and my influence of music.
Yeah. So did you learn to play like a banjo or a guitar or anything during that time?
When I was young, I played the mandolin.
Uh-huh.
And I played the guitar. Matter of fact, over here, that's a 1939 Gibson.
Oh my goodness.
That my dad bought brand new.
Wow.
He bought that and a Gibson mandolin brand new in 1939. My grandma used to hang it on the wall behind an old warm morning stove that heated the whole house. It dried it out.
Ooh.
When she gave me the guitar, it was cracked and just unplayable. But I cherished it, and I took it to Gibson Guitar here in Nashville about 5 years ago. They kept it for a year and restored it.
Really?
Oh man, every famous player in Nashville has played that guitar. Gibson tried to buy it from me. They offered me unbelievable money. And Bobby, it's the only thing I have of my dad.
You can't. I have a guitar. It's a Martin D18 that my dad bought in 1954. It's a 1948 D18.
Wow.
And he gave it to me when I turned 25. So I've had it 31 years now, and I cherish it. It needs to be refurbished, but I'm just going to keep it like it is because that's what I remember it looking like when I was a little kid. Well, I'm just going to hang on to that memory.
Gibson told me, do not touch the finish. They didn't touch the finish.
Yeah.
But they took it totally apart. It took them a year. They had to put moisture back into it.
Yeah.
He said 6 months before we could touch it. And they took it all apart and glued it all back together properly.
Yeah.
The neck was perfect. I asked him about the keys to tune it with.
Yeah.
Because they're original, 1939.
Probably
I said, should I
ones.
put new keys on? He said,
Yeah.
You don't know how rare these keys are.
Yeah.
He said, they normally break.
Yeah,
and they're original. He said, don't touch the keys.
That's awesome.
And so this got scratches, and my grandma wrote her initials on it. And it's cool. But they said, don't touch the finish.
What did they offer you? Just tell us.
$10,000.
$10,000.
Mr. Gruen offered me $10,000 before it was refinished.
Oh wow! So you think it's worth more now?
At Gibson, they come in with 10. Then they said, "What do you want?" And I said, "Nothing."
Yeah, you can't. That's
no,
not
I
worth.
Can't replace it. I'm gonna give it to one of my sons. I got 5 sons, and so I can't wait to give it away.
That's pretty awesome. So that was your influence early in music. So you started listening to rock and roll, Elvis and Beatles and all that. So when did you actually get in a group and start singing, or when did you get saved during all that time, and that's how you started getting into gospel?
Well, yeah, I tried to sing, listening to like a lot of guys. You listen to recordings, and back in my teenage years, I'd buy 45 RPMs singles. One of my favorite singers was Jackie Wilson. black guy. Now he has a range that's out of this world. I could never hit his. Tom Jones, I could come close because he sang more like a man. He was down in that lower register.
Oh yeah.
But I started listening to music and trying to sing with him. And then when I moved to Columbus and went to high school, I got into choir, glee club, anything I could get in. And then me and a couple guys formed a group and tried to make it that way. But at 23, my lifestyle was not good. I was married, had 2 kids. But a guy invited me to church, Bobby. And my wife and I went and gave our heart to Christ, changed my world, saved my life, saved my marriage.
Yeah.
When I was saved, I was totally saved.
That's awesome.
And I quit playing rock and roll, and I laid my guitar down. I thought I'll never play again. And 2 years later, though, a friend in church invited me. He said, "Hey, you want to go to a gospel concert?" And I didn't know what he's talking about. I said, "What in the world's that?"
Yeah.
He goes, "They sing gospel music, Christian music." And I said, "Well, I guess, where's it at?" I was a little nervous because every concert I had been to was not Christian.
Right.
And he said, downtown Columbus, there's a big auditorium called the Veterans Memorial, seats about 3,800. And I said, yeah, me and my wife would go. So 6 or 7 couple, we everybody from church, we went. And that was the very first time I ever saw a gospel quartet. And I'll never forget it. The first group that walked out on stage was a group from Nashville called the Spear Family.
Yes.
And they were great. Their singing was great. The quality was great. But I didn't relate to it because, now you got to remember, my background was rock and roll.
Rock, yeah.
But I thought, well, that's good music, though. Quality.
Yeah.
And they had the bass singer, Brock. Oh, I loved his tone. That guy was awesome. And then they brought out a group called the Blackwood Brothers. Now, I had heard of them because of Elvis.
Elvis, yeah.
And they sang at Elvis's funeral.
Uh-huh.
And they came out and they sang, and it was good, but it really didn't move me. A trio came out called the McDuff Brothers. A lot of people are not familiar with them. They were out of Texas. Roger McDuff, a lot of people know Roger, but the McDuff Brothers were 3. Their church, I believe, was Assembly of God. So they were Pentecostal boys, very anointed. And I got saved in an Assembly of God church, so I related to them.
Yeah.
And when they came out before they came out on stage, they were introduced by, let me take it back, now I'm missing my story. When they came out on stage and they started singing, I was in tears. I was moved beyond words. And when they finished, I thought, wow, this is awesome.
Did they have a band back then?
They had a piano player and I think a bass guitar. They may not even had a bass guitar.
Yeah.
I believe their piano player at that time was Lauren Matthews. And just a piano. And that's all the Blackwoods had was a piano.
Yeah.
This was 1969.
Wow.
And then the promoter, W.B. Nowlin, he was out of Dallas, Texas, and J.G. Whitfield, they co-promoted that. W.B., I think, introduced the last and final group. And it was Hobie Lister and the Statesmen.
Yeah.
Never heard of them in my life, not familiar with them. So when they introduced them, they didn't walk out on stage. Only Hobie Lister walked out on stage. And this is Hobie behind me. That's a picture of Hobie. I love Hobie Lister.
Yeah.
So Hobie come out on stage and he said, before the Statesmen come out, I want John McDuff to come back out. I'm going to play a song and I want him to sing it as only he can sing it. I'll never forget those words. John came back out and he sang the old song, Unworthy. Are you familiar with? Oh my goodness. I sat there, Bobby, and I cried like a baby. Woo! Because I was a 2-year-old Christian and I knew I was unworthy.
Yeah.
But when they finished, the Statesman came out. And I said, all right, who are these guys?
Man, that was a big lineup that night.
Oh,
My
huge
goodness.
lineup.
Wow.
When the Statesman kicked it off, son, they brought me out of my seat because it was R&B.
Yeah.
I thought, woo, this is a different sound. Hovey, I later started following him and studying what he did. He would reach into black gospel and bring it into his world. Of course, they were white and their sound was different, but he still had that good R&B feel.
Yeah.
I became an instant fan. And that night when I left there, I was done.
Yeah.
I was hooked. The bug bit me big time. And you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah, I definitely do.
I was 23, 24 years old and just got hooked on gospel music.
Wow.
That's how I got introduced to it.
So when was it when you actually got into a group and started singing gospel music yourself?
Well, I went back to my church and boy, I couldn't get it out of my head. It wouldn't leave me. Now, at that time, I had 3 children. So I had to support 3 children.
Yeah.
And I ended up having 5 sons and 1 daughter. So with 6 kids,
wow.
My wife was always home, taking care of them.
Yeah.
So I had to be the sole supporter of them.
Right.
And I thought, how can I sing gospel music with a big family? So what I started doing, I organized a trio. There was a guy out of my church named Brad Boston. He and I played rock and roll together. And I led him to the Lord. Wow. And then there was a young Hispanic guy, a Mexican guy, moved from Waco, Texas to Columbus. He was in the Air Force. Mm-hmm. Danny Ramirez was his name. And we got talking about putting together a group, and we put together a little trio, and we called it the Timesman Trio. The Timesman. And we sang together, and then Danny got transferred out. So that was went to Alaska, and I hired me another guy, and Brad quit because he had to work. But I kept that trio going for about 3 and a half years. And then I got a call from a guy that there was a quartet out of Columbus called the Layman Quartet, very well known regionally. And they were looking for a lead singer. So I went out and auditioned and got the job. Mm-hmm. And the Layman, they worked mostly regional. They were like a regional group, but they recorded with the national, they had a national recording contract with QCA Records, which back in those days was big. They were booked by Sumar Talent Agency out of Nashville, J.D. Sumner owned. And boy, that was a great quartet. 7-8 years I stayed with that quartet. And we could only sing Friday, Saturday, and Sunday because, man, we had to work.
Had to work.
The owner of that group was a guy named George Kernut. Oh, what a jewel he was. He was the bass singer and had a great quartet. We worked national TV shows. We worked everything on the national level. Sonny Simmons would promote Columbus, Cleveland, Akron, Huntington, Charleston, Louisville. We worked every one of those things with every major group, like the Oak Ridge Boys, the Downings, the Inspiration, you name it. Yeah. The Rambos. Oh, and, so I was with a quality group. But I would get calls, Bobby, from full-time groups. I became friends with Squire Parsons when he was 18 years old. Huh. And he'd call me and say, hey, so-and-so's looking for a lead singer. Are you interested? I said, man, yeah, have him give me a call. So they called me, and first thing I say, what are you paying? Yeah. Not that I had to make $300 to $400 to feed my kids.
Yeah, exactly.
And they would hit me with the number half of that. Yeah. So I could never join a full-time group. I had, with 6 kids, you just can't do it.
See, a lot of us started as teenagers, out of high school, and we didn't have a family yet. So if somebody offered you $100, $150 a week, you'd jump on it,
I've talked to guys started at $75 a week because they just been.
You know how much I started out as?
Nope.
$20 a date.
Woo, man.
If we sang 2 times that weekend, that was $40, man.
Isn't that awesome?
But I was 19 years old. I didn't have, of course I wasn't married yet.
Yep.
I didn't have any debt. I could go live with 3 other guys and share the rent and the utilities. And I was in heaven, man.
Well, most musicians, even rock and rollers, big names, they all started that way. But, I got a late start in gospel music. Right. And I already had a big family. But God had a plan for me.
He always does.
He does. 1992, a good friend of mine, Tank Tackett, and you know Tank well, he goes to our church.
Yes, sir.
You and I go to Cornerstone, Nashville. I love my church. I've been going there 26 years. Tank called me. I lived in Columbus, and all 5 of my sons had graduated from high school. A couple of them had already gotten out of college. They had all moved out. I just had my daughter, who was 7 years old. Tank was singing with the Statesman Quartet, whom I loved.
Yeah.
He said, man, we're going to be needing a lead singer. You ought to come on down. And I said, man, I will. I'm ready.
Yeah.
And my wife, she did not want to move. But I said, honey, this is what I wanted to do all my life. I've worked hard all my life, and now there's a window. So I talked to 2 or 3 guys, and they said, nah, that's not a good deal. The Statesman, Hobie's got cancer. He's going to fold the group. Oh. And I thought, well, that'd give me an excuse to move to Nashville anyway. So me and my daughter, we headed out. We found us a home in Nashville. We rented a home. We didn't know where we wanted to live. And then my wife, a few weeks later, we moved. And by the time I got moved, I got on the bus with the Statesman. Tank said, come on. And the very first trip out, we pulled in front of Hobie's house down in Atlanta. And he said, got a meeting, boys. Now, at that time, it was Tank, Bob Caldwell on bass, Scooter Simmons on baritone, and Jack Toney on lead, who was leaving the group. Uh-huh. And that was my hopes to replace him. But at that trip, I was with him. Hobie says, I'm folding the group tonight.
Oh.
And he had cancer.
Yeah.
But so after he folded the group, me, Tank, Scooter, and Bob Caldwell organized the group. But nobody had any contacts, and I didn't have any contacts. I'd been out of that world for a long time.
Yeah.
So it didn't last but about a year, and we folded it. But I got plugged into church at Cornerstone and joined the choir, joined the praise team. I did everything I could do. And every Sunday, man, I went to the altar. Every Sunday.
Yeah.
And I just prayed, Lord, what do you want me to do? And about 3-4 years later, oh, no, man, it might have been 5 years later, he laid it up on my heart to start a group. And, man, I prayed about that. And but 2001, I'll never forget as long as I live. I sang it in the choir. And Shelley Sturban got up and sang a song called Dear Captain.
I remember, yeah.
Boy, yeah, you were there probably. And
I was running sound then.
Me up, and I was looking for a song that I could record and ship to radio to try to launch my new group that I hadn't even had a name for yet. And I said, Shelley, who wrote that song? Where did you get it? She said, my mom and stepdad and another guy in Kentucky co-wrote it. And I said, has anybody recorded it? She said, no, they pitched it to over 200 artists. Huh. But it was written when Bill Clinton was president and he was having his affair with Monica. Nobody really wanted to sing about the president. I'm going to pray for you. And they should have.
Yeah, they should have, yeah.
But, God has a plan, I believe with all my heart. And I said, well, I want the song. And I went to Rick Sandy.
She actually sang it that day. It was after 9/11.
Yep.
Right?
No,
or
it was
before
9/11.
Okay, before. July before 9/11. Yeah, that's right. But George W. Bush was the president then.
That's correct. But this is how God moves in your life. Bobby, I believe with all my heart, he spoke to me that day and said, there's your song. And when she said over 200 artists turned it down, I went, oh, maybe that's not my song.
Yeah.
But I prayed and I said, that is my song. I just believed it with all my heart. So next week she brought me the lyrics and they said they'd love for you to record it. And I went to Rick Sandage, whom you've just had on your show.
Yeah.
And who was good. He was going to Cornerstone Church.
Right.
And I told him about that song. And he plugged me into a guy named David Floyd. And David, boy, a tremendous arranger. He writes charts. He writes strings. And
yeah.
So I go to David and I said, we want to rearrange this song. We want to make it an anthem. Shelley had it more like a prayer, very slow, very. And I thought we need a big Southern gospel ending.
Yeah.
And so I said, take your time. And he started producing me a soundtrack. And when 9/11 hit, and now that was August, September he had the track done, but 9/11 hit.
Yeah.
And I went, oh my Lord, we've got the song.
Yeah.
Everybody in the nation said, pray for the president.
Right.
And at that time, Mitchell John Kennitzer was part of the group, and a guy named Stephen Blanton, and tremendous tenor vocalist, tremendous singer. I love both of those guys dearly.
Yeah.
They were part of the group, and we hadn't named the group yet. And after David got done with the track, we went to Rick. We laid the vocals down, and I called Paul Wharton, a photographer, and I said, "We need a picture, Paul."
Yeah.
So we go out to his studio, and we did a photo session. He asked, "What's the name of the group?" I said, "Haven't named it yet," but we threw down a legal pad with about 200 names on it, and he saw 3 bridges, and he typed that in his computer, and it put it up on the picture. I said, "That's one of my favorites," and it looked good on the picture.
Yeah.
And I had Rick Sandage had burnt me a copy of that one song, "Dear Captain." And I said, "Here, Paul, you need to listen to this one. We're going to ship this to radio."
Yeah.
We didn't know who to ship it to.
Yeah.
And nobody knew who we were, nobody. And I got home. I got a call from a very famous attorney in Nashville, a music attorney. And Paul Wharton had called this guy and said, "You need to listen to this song." So this attorney said, Paul Wharton said, "You got a song I need to hear." I said, "Okay, when would you like?" Now this was the next day actually, because it was like 10:30 in the morning. He said, "Come down, can you come down to my office?" I said, "Yeah, when do you want me to come?" He says, "How about 1 o'clock?" So man, I burnt me 12 copies of that one song. And I run down to his office, and I was scared to death.
Yeah.
And they invited me in. It's like a 6-story office building downtown Nashville, nothing but attorneys, and he's the main attorney. The Statler brothers was one of his clients, people like that.
Yeah.
So he brought me into his office, and I introduced myself, gave him he said, I gave him the CD, turned around, put it in his Bose player, and he leaned back and closed his eyes, and it's a 5-minute song. He listened to the whole song, and he turned back around, he'd play again. Then when it finished, he turned back around, he'd play the 3rd time.
Huh.
When it finished, I thought, man, either he loves it or he's trying to get me out of here. And he hit stop. When he hit stop, he went, "Whoa, what a song."
Wow.
And he said, "What do you want to do with it?" I said, "Well, I'm going to pitch it to radio. I'm going to pitch it to record companies." He said, "Let me do that for you."
Huh.
I said, "Man, I can't afford you."
Yeah.
And I couldn't. I was broke. I was
Yeah.
just living from paycheck to paycheck, trying to take care of my family. And he said, I said, "Here's the deal. If you pitch it to a record company and they want it, tell them they'll have to pay your fee because I honestly can't." He said, "That's a deal."
Okay. Wow.
The very next day, man, I got a call from Chris White.
Yeah.
And he's with Crossroads Music and the Sunlight labels. And
Right.
he didn't know who I was. He didn't know who any of us were.
Yeah.
He said, "I'm going to be in Nashville tomorrow. Can we meet?" And we met at Longhorn Steakhouse. And he had heard the song. Matter of fact, the attorney emailed him a copy of it. And he said, "On the way to Nashville, me and my wife listened to it. My wife said, who are those guys?
Yeah.
And he said, I don't know who they are. She said, well, they sing better than anybody on your label. I went, whoa.
Oh, oh man. We're not going to say who was on the label back then.
No, I would never do that because he was loaded with quality groups.
Yeah, he was. He was.
But so we're sitting there in a meeting, and he says, what's the name of your group? I go, we ain't named it yet. He said, what am I doing talking to you? I said, I don't know. You called me.
Yeah.
Make a long story short, we signed with him, and that song launched our career.
Yeah.
It went all over the world, Bobby. We actually got a letter from President Bush. He played it on Air Force One.
Is that right?
Yep. It's
That's
incredible.
awesome. Yeah.
I got a thank you letter. Still have it from President Bush.
That's awesome.
It was awesome.
You know, you picked Mitch. I know Mitch very well. He was in the choir also at Cornerstone.
Yes.
And Steve was he played guitar at Cornerstone for a while, and he was also a Sunday school teacher. So I knew him, and actually Mid-South recorded one of his songs on next to the last project we ever did called Far and Away. Him and Robbie McGee co-wrote it together.
Wow.
His style was totally not Southern gospel.
Oh,
he was more into James Taylor, that kind of stuff. You know,
he
sing
sounds
just
like James Taylor.
Yeah, he does. And Mitch is more R&B. You know, he did some country stuff in his past. And so when you put those two guys together with you, it wasn't really a Southern gospel sound.
No.
Per se. You know, it was more R&B or kind of in the middle between Southern and almost contemporary. And so your sound was a little different than most trios, Southern gospel trios. So I know the feeling about, you know, doing a different style in Southern gospel. So how did, when you guys got rolling, how did the people in the industry especially, how did they receive you?
It really blew my mind. I mean, we made the cover of the Singing News early, and I was interviewed by everybody, and this is how God works. I remember I told you about falling in love with the Statesman Quartet.
Yes.
They were so unique. They were, in my opinion, artists.
Yeah.
And an artist is somebody that doesn't copy, but creates.
Exactly, yeah.
But I thought, they asked me, they said, you guys are so different. I said, well, if you think back in gospel music, one of the hottest groups ever was the Statesmen. And I think they were so hot because they were different.
They were different, yeah.
And, you know, we only did, honestly, Bobby, we only sang what we liked. So our style was what we liked. Yeah. And we would we started pulling from the black world, black gospel songs. Yes. I remember on their second or third album pitching a song called Coolin' Water to Chris White. He said, no, absolutely. He asked really? No, I don't fit. That's not something. I said, Chris, you don't get my vision. Yeah. I go, let us do it. Trust me. And he said, okay. And of course, we took it. It was a 15-minute song with 10 minutes of vamp. Yeah. And we shortened it down to almost 4 minutes. And it worked. It shot to the top of the charts. That was our first number one song. First number one, yeah. Yeah. When I first heard that song, I was like, man, this is so different. It was so different from everything else that was playing. It was just, of course, I love Mitch's voice. You know? Oh, what a voice, man. That guy, in my opinion, he is as good as anybody in music. Yeah. The guy's phenomenal. He can sing anything. Anything. Yeah. And great. Yeah, exactly. And, but, you know, Mitch, he 7 years, 6.5 years or so, he was with me, almost 7 years. And Stephen left to pastor a church. But when Mitch left, that was a tough replacement. Yeah. But, he kind of decided to strike out on his own and do a solo. Yeah, you know, but God still blessed Three Bridges. We hung in there through that tough transition. And I had a young lead singer out of Chattanooga named Scott Johnson, who's a good singer. But he hurt his knee and tore it up and had to go off the road. And I had met Shannon Smith, my current lead singer, and Jeremy Hudson when they were with the Imperials.
That's right.
And I will never forget, this is how God operates. I was we was doing a concert together, and I'm sitting on the front row. I wanted to see him. So it was like the Holy Spirit spoke to me that night. And I looked at Shannon and I looked at Jeremy, and the Holy Spirit said, those men are going to be with you one of these days. And I sat back and I went, whoa, where did that come from?
Yeah.
I mean, that was within my spirit. Now, I didn't hear a voice in my spirit. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah.
So I needed a lead singer, and I put out press releases and and all of a sudden I remembered Shannon and Jeremy.
Yeah.
They had shut the Imperials down. They had owned the Imperials, and Shannon had left the Imperials, took a job in Miami, Florida as minister of music. Jeremy had left the Imperials and took a job in Alabama as minister of music. And 2008 hit, the economy died.
Yeah.
Churches all over the nation were laying off staff.
Yeah.
Shannon got laid off. Jeremy got laid off. And here I needed a lead singer and a tenor.
There you go.
And so I called Shannon first. And no, I take it back. I think it was Jeremy. And he said he would never sing in a group again. But he told me, he says, when he got the call from me, he said, man, my spirit inside just leaped. I went, whoa, three bridges.
Yeah.
Because he loved us.
Yeah.
But, you know, we were more like the Imperials.
Right.
You know, just not your real traditional sounding group.
Exactly.
And then I called Shannon, and he said, well, I'm not for sure what I'm going to do. He said, I said, I don't really want to go back on the road. He said, I think I want to pastor, or I'm going to do something. And I said, look, I'm in no hurry. I told both of these men, I'm in no hurry. I got guys filling in, helping me. Take your time. I said, I don't want you to come aboard for a year. I want you to commit. If you come aboard, you're aboard. And so after a few weeks, Shannon called me up and said, can I go out on a trip with you? And I said, yes. And we were singing up in Ohio. I'll never forget it. And we on that trip, he fit perfect. He has enough soul. Mitch is full of soul.
Yes.
Shannon has enough soul that when he hit Cool and Water, I had a lot of friends from Ohio sitting in that concert that day. They all went, whoa, yeah, that's the guy. And so I said, well, when we finished that trip, Shannon said, who's going to be the tenor? I said, well, I'm trying to hire Jeremy, and he's filling in at a church. He's committed to it for another month.
Yeah.
I said, but Shannon said, if he commits, I'm in. Well, awesome. Shannon actually joined before Jeremy, but if they both joined me, and it's been over 10 years.
Has it been that long already?
10 years.
Where has the time gone, man?
It's mind-boggling, ain't it?
It is. Well, you guys,
early 2009, they both joined me.
What a sound you guys have.
Oh, now it's a little different, but we still are able to like Cool and Water, feel a little song coming on. Yeah. Songs like that is still very soulful.
Oh, yeah.
And this is what I call a power group.
Yeah.
You know, the Cathedral Quartet, they were powerful. They would blow the wall down with their power. They would. And Shannon is a trained opera singer, not Opry. Yeah. Not the Grand Ole Opry. Yeah. I'm the Grand Ole Opry.
You're Roy Clark, man.
I'm Roy Clark, yeah. But Shannon, with his operatic training, buddy, on several, and you appreciate this, several of the songs that we sing, like we do the old song, Amen. Yeah. And there's one line, it says, but he rose again. When Shannon hits that, he's hitting a C. The lead singer.
Man, that's tenor. That's tenor range right there.
That's tenor range.
Yeah.
Man, when he hits that C, I don't know what note Jeremy's hitting, but this old baritone is struggling to hit his note.
I can relate.
Power singing.
I used to sing with a couple of high singers myself, and I can relate to that.
Oh, Kent Humphreys.
Oh, yeah.
That man, what a singer he is. He's one of my favorite singers, by the way.
He could have been somebody that could have joined you way back then, you know.
Oh, boy, I would have been after him in a heartbeat.
Oh, yeah. He's awesome.
When I was looking, I never thought about him, but his style would have worked.
Yeah, but it's like you say, the Lord, he orders our steps.
He ordained it.
If we try to do things on our own, it never works out. We just got to give it to him, right? So
amen to that.
He knew exactly who was going to be in your group right now, and it wasn't no surprise to him. So,
boy, and Jeremy, his range, we call him a freak. When we arrange our songs, we arrange it around Jeremy. He has a sweet spot that he likes.
Yeah.
And unfortunately for me, it's always a key higher than I like.
It's your breaking point. Yeah.
I still can hit it, but Shannon has, boy, you talk about support, whoo.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And Shannon's a licensed ordained minister, knows the gospel.
That's awesome.
Jeremy's a licensed ordained minister. He knows the gospel. They're godly men. They're quality singers, but, man, they're real.
So when you guys go out, it's not just to entertain, which that's part of it. It's ministry. It's ministry.
Yeah, I think they let me do the entertaining part. My skills are laughter, joy, funniness. They allow me to do that, and boy, then I've learned through the years there's a time when you allow the Holy Spirit to work.
You got to shut up.
And I shut up, and I turn either Jeremy or Shannon loose.
Yeah,
it's powerful.
Yeah, man.
We minister to a lot of people. Shannon said to me, he said, I believe the group has the spirit of joy. We have the ministry of bringing joy into a church or into a concert.
Yeah.
And I thought, you know what, Shannon, you're right. I've never thought about it, but we do.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people out there. A lot of people out there going through a lot of stuff. We don't have no idea, and they need to be uplifted. They need that joy, and so when we go to churches, you go to churches and sing.
Oh,
it just uplifts their spirit. Makes them feel so much better.
Boy, it does. Man, I'm talking too much, I think. But
no. I love this, and I know the people out there that are watching this right now. They're loving this. They appreciate you and what you've done and what you've accomplished in gospel music and where you came from. You were telling me before we started the interview the pictures and things behind you, and the awards and the CDs you've got there. Talk about those a little bit.
I think this was our first. This was a Christmas album produced by Rick Sandage.
Uh-huh.
We spent 2 years producing this.
Wow.
I mean, I was so serious. Christmas music is my favorite music.
Me too.
And I listen to, every year I try to find the best Christmas album, and I buy 7 of them. Uh-huh. 1 for me and 6 for my children. And as a tradition.
Yeah.
And it's tough to find quality.
It is.
Now, if you listen to Nat King Cole.
Oh, man.
Oh, son, that's quality.
Yes.
You listen to Dean Martin, Frankston, all the big crooners. Their albums was fabulous.
Bing Crosby. Yeah.
Bing Crosby.
Oh, man, yeah.
And so I said, I don't want to do, in Southern gospel music, called a track session.
Yeah.
Where you lease a cheap track.
Right.
Because you only sell them normally 1 month a year, or 2 months a year. So at that time I had paid for the production of it. We put more money into this album than any album we had ever done.
Wow.
And we handpicked the songs. Christmas Must Be Tonight is the title. And that was written by a guy, I think Robbie Robinson or something like that. He sang with a cult group called The Band, and they were from the drug culture, the rock and roll group. But that song, Christmas Bus, I heard that one. Oh, what a song! When you think about the shepherds and everybody that went to the stable, surely somebody would have said, "Wow, Christmas must be tonight."
Yeah, exactly.
The King is born.
Yeah.
So that was a title song, but man, we did an old spiritual. Of course, I had to find me an R&B song.
Got to do that.
And Mary Had a Baby. Now that song was recorded by every famous black artist in music.
Huh.
You name it, they've recorded it.
Yeah.
To my knowledge, nobody in Southern Gospel had ever recorded it. And son, we got a killer cut on it.
Wow.
Rick Sandage went overboard producing it. We had some of the finest musicians in Nashville play on it, and a lot of them. But then we did a song. Jeremy does a song called "He Came Here for Me." What a tender ballad! Jeremy he did a marvelous job on that song, and it was made famous by a group called the Carpenters.
Yes.
Incredible.
Love the Carpenters.
And then, of course, we had to do Mark Lowry's song. That's
Mary,
the hottest new
Yeah.
song in Christmas music.
Yes.
Mary, Did You Know?
Did you know? Yeah.
And you talk about range, Shannon and Jeremy. Oh, man, it's a great cut.
Wow.
And that album with Absolutely Gospel won. It was called Special Events Project of the Year. And it was up against every big name group in Southern Gospel. I didn't think we would win it because who are we? But we hit one. And it was
awesome.
very deserving.
Awesome, man.
Then Rick Sandage produced this album for us called Jesus Saves.
Yeah.
And it was nominated for Progressive Recording of the Year with Absolute Gospel Music. And it won Progressive Album of the Year. It's a fabulous song.
Yeah.
Jesus Saves is a newer song written by Glenn Bates and I forget the country and some big country artist. I forget his name, but great album.
Yeah.
That album also won a Diamond Award of the Year. And they classified it as Christian country.
Really?
We're not country, but on that album, we put the first album, maybe the second, I can't remember. We very seldom use a fiddle or a steel guitar. We just don't do it. Don't fit what we do.
Right.
But on Jesus Saves, we use fiddle, we use dobro, we lean more country, even though we had enough R&B on it to stick to what we are. But it won from the Diamond Awards. Great award.
That's awesome.
And our newest album is called Our Story. Man, and we, as far as record labels, we are now back with Crossroads Music, Sunlight Records, Chris White and his crew. This album is incredible. And it was produced by a guy in town called Trey Corley. You know Trey. Trey is the music producer on the Huckabee Show. Okay. And he owns Oak Tree Recording Studios.
Right.
But Trey produced it, and the song selection is out of this world. We covered a couple of songs. One, My Story, Big Daddy Weave. He's a big contemporary artist.
Yes.
I'm a huge fan of Big Daddy Weave.
Yeah.
You're watching this Big Daddy Weave, you are incredible. His writing skills are just on another planet.
They are.
He took the old song, Blessed Assurance, and this is my story, this is my song.
Yeah.
But he had just a little bit of that thought in there. And if I told you my story, it would be about love. It would be about grace. What a song. I couldn't get rid of it. We recorded it, and we added harmony. He's a solo artist.
Right.
We did it as a trio. We brought in live strings, which is expensive.
Yeah.
We brought in players from the Nashville Symphony Orchestra.
Right.
The cello just blew me away.
Yeah.
And we added live strings to that cut. And we liked it so well, we named the album not My Story, but Our Story.
Our Story, yeah.
And this album is the best we've done in a long time. But it was nominated for Progressive Album of the Year from Absolute Gospel, and it won. Great album.
I love the logo you got on there.
Yeah, that's our logo. Isn't that a cool logo?
That is. I saw Rick when I did Rick. He had a ball cap with that.
I got to get you a ball cap.
Yeah, I'd love to have.
I'll send you I'll send you a T-shirt and a ball cap.
That sounds great. I'll wear it for sure.
I had tried 3 bridges. That's our logo. We got the 3, we got the cross, but we got the B. It looks like a B for 3 bridges.
Right.
Shannon Smith, his son Nick Smith, traveled with us 5-6 years running sound.
Uh-huh.
A very creative young man. He now is head over. He goes to the big church in Murfreesboro, World Outreach Church. They run about 12,500.
Yeah.
Nick, Shannon's son, is over all the productions. He's the main guy.
Uh-huh.
And I still haven't got a royalty from him because I trained him. He runs sound for 3 bridges. Yeah. But I owe Nick. I love Nick.
Yeah.
He designed this logo.
Really?
You know, when you try to get a logo, I've hired 3 different people in Nashville, art designers, and I never had anything I liked. I just could not get a logo for 3. They'd all do bridges.
Yeah.
And one night I'm sitting on the bus, 2:30 in the morning, I'm up front. Here come Nick with his computer. He, at the time, he's probably 18 years old. He says, Mr. McCoy, can I show you something? I said, well, sure. So he showed me his laptop, and he said, I've got an idea for a logo for the group. He showed me this, and I went, oh, that's it.
That's it right
Whoa,
there.
thank you, Lord.
That is
an
awesome.
18-year-old kid came
kids are much smarter than we were.
Oh, man, they're so smart. But I love
computers,
our logo.
especially. Yeah, that's awesome. So what about those pictures behind you?
Oh man, let me move my camera.
Yeah.
I cherish these pictures. In Southern gospel music, I forget the artist. He's out of Berea, Kentucky. He did these pictures, and they tried to raise money for the Southern Gospel Music Hall of Fame.
Uh-huh.
And when they came out, I'll be honest with you, I couldn't afford to buy them. But I ended up getting all 3 from our photographer, Paul Wharton.
Yeah.
He downsized, and I took advantage and bought them. But the one with George Johnson, Glenn Payne,
yeah,
I was friends with them from the early 70s. I lived in Ohio. They lived in Ohio.
Yeah.
Did dozens upon dozens of concerts with them. Dear friends, and it's autographed. Then this is with Hovey Lister. There's over 30 autographs on it. Jake Hess, Brock Spears, James Blackwood, Eva Mae Lefebvre. You can go down. They're all the legends are on that picture.
Awesome.
And I love this picture. It's of the Lewis family. Of course, Jeff and Sherry Easter, she's from the Lewis, from the Lewis family, and she's the little girl holding the guitar.
Okay, yeah.
And she autographed that picture.
That's cool stuff.
Man,
right
I wouldn't
there.
take nothing for those pictures.
No.
And then let me get then over here. I don't know if you can see these pictures.
Yeah.
That's just pictures of the group and
Who's that ugly guy on there on the right?
You know that old boy there, yeah. That's Shannon, Jeremy, and me. Yeah. And we had some Chinese guy, Chinese guy there painted that picture of us.
He painted
I don't know if you can see it or not, but then we got
like a photo,
number 1 plaques and things like that.
That's cool.
But just pictures.
That's awesome, man. You know, speaking of George and Glenn, back when I was with Mid-South, and we were kind of going through the changing from Southern to a Christian country thing back then.
I remember that.
We had a lot of we had some rough times, especially with industry people that didn't like the change, didn't like us doing the country stuff, and we did a lot of concerts with the cathedrals.
Yes.
You know, back during that time, every time George and Glenn would come up to us, and they would just shake our hand and hug our necks and say, we love what you guys are doing. Y'all keep it up. You know, if you're doing what you feel like God wants you to do, you keep it up. Don't you worry about what anybody else is saying. We love it.
No.
Always encouraged
what
us.
God tells you to do. George Johnson was a cheerleader of people like you and me. Our very first song that really went to the top of the charts was a song called I'm a Soldier in the Army of the Lord.
Yeah, I remember that.
And it was a number 1 played song in Southern Gospel music that year.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah.
And George, I was on the road. I come home one day and I had an old phone with a built-in recorder, and I had a message from George, and I missed his call. But he called and says, "Hey, Elliott, this is just the old man Jans." He says, "I just want to encourage you. I love what you're doing. Keep it up, man." What an encourager.
They were that way. Rex Nealon was the same way. Every time we'd sing with the Nealons, he always encouraged us. Just
wow,
they were awesome people.
Isn't that awesome?
Sure miss them.
They were no jealousy from any of them.
No.
Pretty cool.
Good men right there. We sure do miss them.
Oh man, I do too.
Elliott, this has been a thrill. It's been a joy, and I really appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Man, thank you for setting up the whole your show. It's going to be a success.
Well,
and I'm going to help spread the word because I love what you're doing. And our fans, your fans, people out there, Southern gospel fans are going to love it.
Well, I hope so. I just felt like the Lord was impressing me to do this. It wasn't because we were being quarantined and had downtime or anything like that. I just felt like people like to hear stories. They like to know where people come from, what their life was before they actually got famous, in gospel music or whatever style of music it is. And I'm enjoying it myself. I'm learning a whole lot that I didn't know about people. So I've known you for 20 plus years probably.
Yeah.
And,
when I came to Nashville, I got plugged into Cornerstone. I think it was 93, early 94. I think it was 93. Yeah. You were traveling heavy with the Mid-South.
I was.
And man, I was a fan. I was. I would see you every now and then. I thought, oh, Bobby, and you. I go, that's what I wanted to do, Lord. I came here to sing, and this man. And so every time I'd see you, I'd run up to you because I wanted to be around you.
Right.
You were an inspiration to me, Bobby.
And we
wanted
came
to
over
do what you were doing.
We came over to your house and ate with you. We went out to eat, a few times, and we love being around you and your family. And I remember Mark, your youngest son. The first time I saw him, I thought, "Is that Donnie Osmond sitting out there?"
Oh my Lord, that boy looks just like Donnie Osmond, don't he?
He's got the big white teeth and everything.
Oh man, and Mark. He's our photographer. Paul Wharton did our first 3, maybe 4 albums.
Yeah.
But my son Mark is a professional photographer up in Mackinac Island, Michigan.
Yeah, he's a beautiful
like all these. Every album we got, he's the photographer, and to me, he's a little cheaper.
He gets that family discount.
He gives me a break.
He owes it to you. His daddy. His daddy.
Yeah.
Spent a lot of money
on
him.
I love you, Bobby. I love your family. And I'm encouraged watching you with your beautiful family out there singing gospel music. You touch a lot of lives. Keep it up.
Well, same to you. And you keep on going, man. And we need to get together sometime and go out to eat and just kind of reminisce and catch up.
All right. We'll do that. We'd love to have you and your family over to our house and just sit and enjoy it.
Well, as soon as this Corona junk's over with, we can do that.
All right, buddy. I'm for it.
All right. Hey, where can people go to get your music?
Well, our website, and we just, during this downtime, I hired a young man, Derek, to build us a new website. All his information's on there. But we just launched a brand new website. It's beautiful. And it's, of course, www.threebridges.net. Just spell out 3 Bridges, 3bridges.net. And, or Facebook, you can go on Facebook. Just type in 3 Bridges and we'll come up.
Yeah.
And we'd like for everybody that's listening to go do that. Go to Facebook and like us.
Yeah.
And it has a comment section. Write a great comment. Tell everybody how much you love us. Now, if you don't want to do that, if you want to write a negative comment, go to Bobby's page, but don't go to mine.
If they write a negative comment, you'll delete it.
We'll delete it.
No. Thanks so much, Elliott. I really, really appreciate it. And,
thank you, Bobby.
God bless you. And when do you think you'll hit back on the road again?
Well, right now we've moved everything. Of course, March, everything moved. April, everything moved. We've moved I've got one date still on for May, if possible.
Yeah.
But fortunately, we didn't lose any dates. We had to move them. We've relocated and got them all back on the calendar.
We did the same thing. I appreciate those people doing that. Yeah.
Oh, thank God for them. And I'm praying. I hope we can get out that last week of May at least.
I hope so too.
Yeah.
I hope so too. God bless you.
Thank you.
We'll see you somewhere down the road somewhere, hopefully.
All right, buddy.
Thanks, Elliott. Bye-bye.